now like to welcome you to the Free Library of Philadelphia. My name is Denise McKnight. I'm a partner at Friedman LLP, which is a regional public accounting firm with offices in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. We provide professional services in the areas of accounting, auditing, taxation, management consultation, and litigation support for businesses, individuals, and not-for-profit organizations, both locally and throughout the country. This evening's event is part of the Free Library's Leading Voices series, which features great conversations with top minds in business. I'm proud to be part of this important and thoughtful series of programs that inspire us all to become better leaders in the workplace and better people in our daily lives. I'm so pleased to introduce tonight's guest speaker, Daily Worth website founder and CEO, Amanda Steinberg. She founded the financial media and education web platform right here in Philadelphia in 2009 to bring a fresh voice and an outsider's perspective to personal finance. Her simple yet powerful advice on how to spend less and save more goes out to more than 1 million subscribers daily. Her innovative work to aid women's financial choices led Oprah to select her to the exclusive Super Soul 100 and Forbes to name her one of 21 new American money masters. In her new book, Worth It, Your Life, Your Money, Your Terms, she explains how women can use money as a source of personal freedom and power. With an unstoppable entrepreneurial drive, according to the New York Times, she strives to give more women more control over their financial futures. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Amanda Steinberg to the Free Library.
Amanda, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's great to have an opportunity to talk with you. And as I was reading your book, Worth It, one of the things that struck me was the idea of a money story. And you said that we all have one. We all have a money story, whether we know it or not. So I'd like you to tell us, what do you mean by money story? And then tell us what your money story is.
Sure. So our ideas about money in particular in this culture, and most likely most cultures, are very weighted with emotion. And, you know, money in particular is still today a taboo that makes people uncomfortable, so thank you very much for being here. I always have to thank folks for engaging in the subject in general because it makes people so uncomfortable. But in particular, when it comes to the formation of our identities at a very young age, we develop ideas about money that we really start to believe are true over time. And for women in particular, these money stories can be, I'm not good with money, money is the source of evil, there's never going to be enough money, money's not my job, et cetera, that become ingrained in our psyches in a way that really, no matter how hard we try to become financially engaged, if those stories run really deep, you're consistently going to sabotage whatever efforts you make, and they are quite pervasive in designing your life, how your life plays out.
And we don't even realize sometimes that we're acting out of those beliefs, right? Because they're so deeply ingrained that until you stop to really think about them and process them, you might not even know they're there.
Exactly. That's one of the pieces of a money story that's how you know it is your money story, is you never even question it. You just assume it's how you are hardwired.
Yeah. So what's your money story?
Well, there was my money story. My money story now is I'm a mogul boss who has it all under control, right? I mean, that's how it works. But my money story was growing up that I'm a saver. I'm sorry, it was that I'm a spender, not a saver, but that's okay because I make so much money that eventually I will have enough, which makes no sense when you think about it. But it did make a lot of sense to me for many years.
So it's like a magical thinking kind of thing.
Yeah, it was a logic pattern that actually isn't correlative, but just seemed to be so because I said it to myself so often.
And so you were making a lot of money at one point, but you were spending as much as you were making.
Yeah, well, that's what I get into in the book. Is it wasn't even necessarily on clothes or some of the more stereotypical places where money might go. It was that I had to spend so much in order to create the life that I thought I was supposed to be living, in order to facilitate what enabled me to make so much money running a small business. It was a vicious cycle that just continued to spiral out of control.
So what changed?
What changed was the $60,000 tax bill that I got and the additional $30,000 in home ownership related expenses that, despite earning multi-six figures, put me close to $100,000 in debt. That woke me up. That was a nice little slap in the face. That was about 10 years ago. And then I remember I was 7 months pregnant with this little one right here, who's now 8. And I got an invite to a seminar in New York City on women and money. It was, and so I remember it was a really hot summer day, and I was pregnant, and I waddled to New York, and I sat in that room, and I thought, oh, I'm the reason that all of this happens because of my views on money. I think I need to reconsider this.
Wow. So as you kind of thought through all that and thought about, what your money story was and how you viewed money, what did you do next to start to turn things around?
I started Daily Worth, of course.
Isn't
that logical? Instead of hiring a financial advisor, I decided to put all of my secrets on the internet, because then I would be held publicly accountable and I would have to change.
Wow.
That was my strategy. It's
Wow.
working.
It worked.
Yeah, exactly. So that's right.
But you had to make some pretty dramatic changes in your lifestyle.
Yeah, I basically had to hit the total reset button and completely dismantle my life and rebuild it from scratch, both psychologically as well as my physical environment.
So what did that look like?
Unfortunately, it was in part the separation from my ex-husband and moving out of our gorgeous stone Mount Airy house into a tiny 2-bedroom apartment that had peeling linoleum, and it was different from where I thought I should live, which I decided to stop even thinking about what any of those entitlements were and start over and just try and reduce everything to nothing and then build with a completely new story.
What were you saying to yourself as you were moving into the apartment, certainly a far cry from what you were used to? What were you saying to yourself to kind of get through that transition?
I need to be free, because I felt completely underwater. And I looked around at everything that I had constructed, and I realized that everything I had created in my life was a result of social narratives that I'm not even sure I really bought into in the first place, and yet the social norms can be so much more powerful than our individual desires at times.
I mentioned the show This Is Us, and one of the interesting things about that show is that it really shows us how the generation before us, our parents, our relatives, really shape us in ways that we don't even realize. And I think that show does it in a way that probably most shows have not. But in your case as well, your mom played a role in shaping the way that you viewed money and the way that you kind of decided to manage money. Tell us a little bit about your mom and her impact in your life.
She's cringing right now.
Hi, Mom.
Unfortunately, it was somewhat of a traumatic beginning because of her divorce when I was 3. And for my mom, who was raised in the 1950s to always just make everybody happy and you will be secure, her entire foundation was dissolved. And as a result, as a child, money to me was just, there was never enough, and it was the source of all stress and a horrible, horrible thing. But then witnessing her go through and I often talk about, it wasn't really about the money, it was much more about her core identity. It's funny, I tell all these stories all the time, and you're rarely in the room when I do it. It's never really about money. It's about, how is it that I become a breadwinner? How is it that I become a provider? What does it mean to be alone when I thought I was supposed to be coupled the whole time? But then watching her actually go through a transformation was profound as a child, to see that you can go from a really dark, stuck place for many years and then completely change your circumstances.
She really modeled for you how you hit the reset button.
Yeah. Exactly.
Nintendo had something to do with your philosophy as well. Tell us about the Nintendo connection.
Sure. I write a lot in the book about how, as a child, I loved video games. 10 hours a day of screens right here. It taught me a lot of things, but mostly it taught me just the ability to regenerate and not take death as failure, but really just to see it as part of the game where you hit the reset button and you start all over again. So you don't have an emotional attachment to this idea of failure. It gives you a lot more resilience in terms of being able to try, and then when it doesn't work, just try again.
So when you hit that point in your life, that critical mass point, you pretty much went back to the Nintendo game and hit the reset.
Well, when you're in that dark of a place, what else are you supposed to do?
I want to talk about how women are perceived and how we perceive ourselves, Amanda, and I was interested to read some of what you wrote about not only pay inequity, certainly we're aware of that, and that's making the news more and more these days, but The way that women negotiate raises, for instance, is different. Perceptions of how women should behave in the marketplace. I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the research that you've done about the way that we perceive ourselves and the way that we are perceived in the marketplace.
Yeah, it's interesting. In running Daily Worth for 8 years, I've developed some hypotheses about why things are the way they are. And one of them is how powerful our social norms are, even despite all of the nuances of the subcultures that we all grow up or are a part of. And the greatest observation I made around gender is and I describe it this way, is that women, to be accepted in our society, have had to be the good girl forever, which basically means we are valued for our selflessness, our ability to nurture, and how we are part of families, and whether or not, and how we play a role in those families. However, as a result of all of the most recent advancements, women are transitioning into a totally different mentality, which I call the lady boss. These are my own terms that I make up to illustrate the point. But the challenge is that many of the characteristics of the lady boss are in direct contradiction to the good girl. For example, this idea of selflessness as being one of the most valuable traits of the good girl, that it runs completely counter to whether or not you can save money for yourself, because how can you be selfless and think of yourself as valuable to save? So a lot of women are moving in the direction of lady boss, but we're still really caught in between the two, and that's why there's all this dissonance around the subject.
And that goes back to those stories that we tell ourselves early on. But talk about Hillary Rodham Clinton as an example, right? Mm-hmm. When you talk about sort of expectations, you write in the book about just Googling the word ambition or ambitious and what comes up. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think this was a Washington Post article that covered this for the first time. If you put Hillary Clinton ambitious, it was all negative press, and if you put Bernie Sanders ambitious, it was all positive, or Donald Trump ambitious, positive.
So it was like ambitious plans,
it's just
ambitious
don't try
agenda.
too hard. You can have some desires, but not too much intensity.
So it was essentially saying, for Hillary Clinton, it was ambitious as in ruthless, right? But for the men, it was ambitious as in ambitious plans, ambitious agendas, ambitious initiatives. Mm-hmm. Interesting dichotomy there. One of the quotes that I liked in your book was, having it all means having it handled. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
It just means the peace of mind, knowing that you can take care of yourself no matter what. I'm fascinated by the dynamics of women and money, just because women today, as I observe, have so much understanding of health and education and all these other things, but then when it's like, what's in your 401k? Oh, I don't know. And this is ubiquitous. Don't feel bad if this is you. This is virtually ubiquitous among women. And it's because of what I lived through and what I've been observing and the work I see over and over again. This disassociation from money means not being able to have it all handled, and that's what one of the things that I'm really striving toward with my work, is making sure women can take care of themselves no matter what.
So you talk at length about net worth, that's really the thing to focus on in the book. What do you mean by the term net worth?
Well, because women just entered the workforce, let's call it 5 or 6 decades ago, at least in the way we are represented today, is that our advancement in terms of how we think about money and how we're socialized to think about money has really gotten to the extent that salary is obviously very important, figuring out how we earn as much as our male counterparts, and then what women's magazines have focused on for the last couple of decades, which is budgeting. It's the household, it's the day-to-day. And so for so many women that I encounter, it's always a struggle of how do I make more money, and then how do I develop the willpower to not spend all of it and save some of it. And that is where a lot of women's thinking, if you weren't necessarily raised to fully understand all aspects of finance, has developed to at this point, culturally speaking. And so one of the things that I do in the book is really start to say, there's a different number that you can focus on, which is about your long-term security, and that's your net worth. So if you're trying to figure out, do I put this extra $1,000 in my retirement or in my savings account or in my, or to pay down my credit card debt, it's so overwhelming, it can feel like chaos. And so I talk about net worth as a single number to focus on, moving in the positive direction. It's to reduce that overwhelm that so many feel of, I have no idea where to begin or what to do next.
Yeah. So how does a woman calculate her net worth? If you had to give us a simple example, what does that look like?
Sure. So for most women, and if you are married and you have joint assets, then you would do this as a household. It's really about combining the value at the simplest level It's combining the value if you own a home with your retirement accounts and cash if you have it, and subtracting your mortgage, your student loans, and your credit card debt. It's a single number that is, it's everything you own minus everything you owe.
So you have a woman who goes through those calculations and realizes that her net worth is in the negative numbers, or it's much lower than she thought. What do you say to that woman?
I say start to really focus on your savings, which is your cash, to make sure that you are not perpetuating debt. Because what so many people do, not just women, is invest for your retirement but don't build up a lot of savings, so you're paying for expensive debt. And again, if you're going, oh yeah, that's me, don't feel bad, this is pervasive because we don't talk about this stuff, even though you're investing for your retirement, your net worth is still going more negative because you're paying for this debt. So the most important thing is to build savings so that you have resources so you're not paying for expensive debt. Easier said than done, I know.
Yeah. Well, and you make an interesting point about savings as well, in the context of it being so important to have investment accounts, saying that yes, you need to have savings, but you also don't want to focus exclusively on that, because what your savings account is worth now is not what it's going to be worth in a few years, right? Which was something that had not occurred to me when I read your book. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it's you know, it would be nice if we didn't all have to work until we're dead. It's like a goal of mine. I'm with you. And in order to do that, it means not only having enough money when you are able to retire one day, but it's also understanding that the money that you are saving to retire isn't going to be worth that. So for example, if I wanted to retire on $50,000 a year, I'm actually going to need 40 years from now, or whenever that is, 30 years from now, $120,000 because of the way the value of money changes relative to inflation. Yeah. So it's like bad news kind of gets worse, but you know, we're rolling with it.
Roots and wings is a big theme of your book. What does that mean?
It's my favorite theme.
Yeah.
You know, growing up with a single mom off South Street in Society Hill, I always thought my mom was really weird because I had no rules. And I would always ask her, you know, Mom, why am I allowed to eat sugar cereal in front of the TV and play video games all day? And she would say, it wasn't that. She's like, what are you saying to people? I was paying attention. So she would always say to me, Amanda, I just need to give you two things in life. I need to give you roots, which is the knowledge that you have a family that loves you, and wings, which is the confidence to go out and do anything that you want. And if I can give you those two things, I have done my job as a mother. And that was kind of cool. I was like, oh, okay, so she's just kind of teaching me how to be an ass kicker. I get it. So what I did, the way I reframe, if you, especially for women, because we've been socialized to have this dissonant relationship with money, if you talk to many women about budgets and plans and goals, we disassociate because we've had all this bad experience with it in the past. I tried to budget, it didn't work. I tried to invest, I lost all my money. I bought a house, it ended up sending me into debt. So the Roots and Wings paradigm is meant to reframe finance in a way that makes sense, that doesn't bring that baggage. And essentially what that means is roots are your assets. So what assets are you building for long-term security? Is it an investment account? Is it owning a house? Is it owning a business? And then what are the dynamics of how you build those roots so that they become really strongly rooted without also becoming a liability? Because your roots, if you're not careful, can actually have the opposite effect that you want them to. And then wings are the cash flow. Now that's what women still tend to think about first, income, how do I make more money and then I'll have more money? Doesn't necessarily work that way. I intentionally put wings as second in the book so that you're thinking about your wings as they support your roots as well as your life, so your long-term security becomes wrapped up in how you're thinking about your finances.
I want you to backtrack a little bit, because at one point you said that your roots can become a liability if you're not careful. Mm-hmm. Give us an example.
Yeah, I mean, my beautiful Mount Airy house that I just thought if you bought a house that it was automatically going to be an investment, and that was not the case because it was 2006 and then 2009 happened, so there goes 20% of the home value. And then there is the fact that you're paying interest on your mortgage for so many years before you're paying down the principal. And then add to that the fact that it's a 100-year-old house and needed new windows in like 20 rooms. I mean, I don't know, it's completely ridiculous. Some people learn these things, some people don't. Some people learn them the hard way. I learned it the hard way, and so I created a business out of it.
Well, and you also write about how many of us assume that real estate is a rock-solid investment, that you kind of can't go wrong, but you can. It's not always the best investment for everyone.
Every investment has risk and costs associated with it, and there are ways to choose those routes so that they are more likely to appreciate in value, or it may be a lifestyle decision and it doesn't appreciate in value. However, it's understanding the risks and costs associated so that you're building roots intelligently and that you buy the smaller house, not the bigger house.
And sometimes it just makes sense to rent, as you did.
I'm renting now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's great that I've been calculating what my landlord pays in, fixes of things. The whole front of the house practically fell off the other day, and I didn't have to pay for it. I was really happy about that. I was calculating, I was like, I should just go put that amount in my savings account right now because I don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And so, as I've been kind of navigating life as it is right now, I just love the freedom of knowing I can move when I need to. And that I've just, obviously the last 8 years of my life have been about freeing up cash flow, paying down debt, building assets, and I have to preach what I teach, otherwise it doesn't work for anyone. So really trying to consistently catch myself when I'm slipping back into old stories and be a saver, which is what I am now.
So in talking about your company, Worth FM, Worth Financial Management, one of the features is finding out what your money type is in terms of helping you then with the investments that you're going to make. And you've identified 5. Can you tell us a little bit about each one, give us a thumbnail of the 5 types, and perhaps we'll see ourselves in some of them, and then what your type is?
Sure. So I'll tell you a little bit about how money type came about. When in running Daily Worth for the last 8 years, our revenue model was advertising, and we were selling advertising to Fidelity, Schwab, et cetera, et cetera. And what I noticed was they all speak in the same language. I'm not just picking on Fidelity and Schwab. This is virtually every financial services company. They all speak in terms of goals and plans. And the issue with that is that the idea of setting goals can be really exciting to some people, and to others, it can feel like, oh God, I'm gonna miss my goal, or I don't even know where to begin with creating a goal. So in recognizing that there was this one language of how to present finance to everyone, and seeing how little resonance it had, so interesting. I would sit in these meetings with the marketers who were buying advertising with Daily Worth, and they would say, women just aren't interested in money. They just don't engage. So we're gonna go back to spending more money at MarketWatch and all of those other places, because that's where we get a lot more customers. And I was like, yes, they're very interested. You're just not packaging it properly. You're just not explaining it right. So money type is something that I developed with Dr. Jennifer Selig, a debt psychologist in California, where I thought, well, what is it that does motivate women? And so we came up with 5 archetypes. There are the visionary, the nurturer, the epicure, the independent, and the producer. And essentially, it's understanding that money unto itself is not a motivator. It is whether you are interested in taking care of others, creating social impact, being very strategic and planning-oriented, being free from the system, or sensory pleasure. And everyone is a combination of all 5. No one is, you're not just one and not the others. You're on a scale of all of them, and you can have really strong 2 or 3 of them and really weak others. So it's understanding, once you know your money type, you understand what your strengths are with money as well as what your sabotage patterns are.
Okay, so I took the test. I am almost a tie between producer and nurturer and low on everything else. So what does that tell you about me? It was producer was number 1, then
yeah.
Nurturer.
Well, producers are the best with money, typically. So producers are the ones who plan really well and who are motivated by goals, and who spend a lot of time thinking about how everything is gonna get organized into pretty boxes with the nice bows on them and everything has labels. That's the producer. And the nurturer is your other?
Yeah.
So the issue most producers have with money is being too conservative, not taking enough risk. And not taking a risk is a risk unto itself. The nurturer is really motivated by taking care of others. And it's interesting, if you have a really strong nurturer and you encourage them to invest for themselves, that actually could create a dissonant response. So when we communicate with nurturers, we say, we want you to consider saving and investing more so that you can take care of others. That's what's going to be motivating to you.
That resonates a little bit better. Yeah. So what's your money type?
I am 100% visionary, which is not always, which means that I don't see risk. I'm the type of person that jumps out of an airplane and just assume that the parachute's going to show up for me. Is Chuck here? He's my accountant. Is Chuck still here? He's laughing because it means that my personal finances go really high, really low, really high, really low. I've stabled it. I mean, I'm a saver now, so that's not really a problem anymore. But left to my own devices, without this level of awareness, I would make tons and tons of money and then sink myself horribly into debt up and down, over and over again.
Yeah.
Does that sound right, Mom? That seems like what my life looks like. Yeah.
So the thing about Worth FM is that having taken the money type test, then you have a sense of who you are as it relates to money, and then that can help in terms of investing. Tell us about Worth FM. What does it offer to women who sign up for it, and how does it help them to make investment decisions?
Yeah, so because Daily Worth was delivering advertising for all of the financial services companies that might help you with your retirement, over the years I got to see how women responded and how we're all interested in being able to save and invest more money. But my speculation is that a lot of the brokerages profit off of people's confusion rather than their clarity. And I thought, I'm going to do something radical here and just make it simple, clear, and transparent. Let's see what happens.
What a concept.
What a rebel, I know. So what I did with Worth FM was say, how do we create the simplest, least amount of decisions so that someone can get set up with a savings account, an investment account, and a retirement account? I looked at all the friction points that we had observed over the years, and I tried to eliminate and solve for as many of them as we possibly could. So you open up an account, you get 3 accounts, and then ultimately it's about how much you have in liquid savings as well as for your retirement, so that we're helping you grow your net worth, not just focusing on the returns of your portfolios.
And you can get in for next to nothing.
$50.
Wow. That's all that's required.
We, again, trying to make it as simple for people that, there's so many assumptions about investing. Do I have enough? Am I going to understand it? Am I going to lose my money? What does the risk mean? All of those things. So we intentionally made it as easy as humanly possible so that you can get in and experience it, and that we can teach you about what's going on as your money experiences the market ebb and flow.
So there's been a lot of talk in recent years, and especially in recent months, about RoboAdvisors, right? It's a relatively new concept. Is that what Worth FM essentially is?
Yeah, so 8 years ago when I started Daily Worth, essentially you could go to Vanguard, Fidelity, any of these places and call or open up an account, and you typically would work with an advisor or someone who would put you into various portfolios relative to your situation. I'm generalizing here, but that's typically what happened. And if you wanted to be self-directed about it, you had to have a basic understanding of rebalancing and things that most people don't really understand. And about 7 years ago, the company that I paid most attention to is a company called Betterment, finally created what I would say if Steve Jobs, reworked the investment industry, it's what RoboAdvisors are. It's about creating the simplest, most automated experience for someone who doesn't have really complex assets and if you don't need a financial advisor, don't want to talk to a financial advisor. That robo-advising is a new digital way to invest that is meant to make everything transparent and clear.
So what do you say to someone who says, I probably am a good candidate for that, but there's something about that human interaction?
Well, many of the companies, including Worth FM, have human interaction as a possibility. Jordan Bastian, who's here, she's one of our human interaction people from Worth FM. Hi, Jordan. So the idea is that we want to do as much for you digitally, but then there's always that purple chat box that you can click on and talk to someone and then eventually speak to someone on the phone.
So in some ways you can get the best of both, right? Because you can get that human help if you need it, but then you also have the computers that are helping you according to your money type choose those investments.
Yeah, actually the money type is more about how the advice is delivered. The investments is related to your income, your age, and your and how you perceive risk, which is something that we help you figure out.
Yeah. Can digital advisors help with other concerns, insurance, saving for a college education?
It's all going that way, and that's where, Worth FM as a fiduciary is interested, obviously, in helping you with your entire financial life, and that's our goal. I don't know if it's where the platform is going to go in the near future, is being able to understand what you need to do next in order to have the greatest impact on your net worth, your security, your clarity, your confidence, and recommend that to you. Life insurance is a very logical piece of that. How that fits in quite yet, we're not sure, but clearly that's the direction everything's going.
So for the woman who says, okay, I get it, I think I should probably do something like this. I could use some help with getting into the investing game, but I also feel a responsibility to understand what I'm investing in and understand how the game works, but I don't know where to start. What advice do you give to a woman who is intelligent, capable, wants to invest, but maybe doesn't know how to get started familiarizing herself with the investing world?
That's why I wrote my book. Thank you. That was the perfect segue. No, it depends on how interested you really are. I mean, some people, they just want to be the passenger and know that it's safe and someone else is handling it for them. So you might be someone who wants to be a co-pilot who's experimenting, but someone's watching you while you do it, or maybe you might want to be actively involved in trying to get greater performance out of your portfolio. And so there's really a variety of options. I'm trying really hard not to turn this just to a personal commercial for myself, because that would be annoying, but I have to say we are launching a course called Money Clarity in a few weeks. We've run it 4 times over the years, and it's a 12-step program for to help you get rid of the guilt and shame, understand what the ticker symbol means, and do all that in a playful, experimental way, so that you can start to just have a basic vocabulary and get over that dissonance that I talk about.
What about people who are concerned, and many of them are, with investing responsibly, and sometimes there's a tension between investing responsibly but also making a profit, and so how do you negotiate that tension?
Do you mean socially screened investments?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a really interesting evolution happening. Actually, 2 pioneers in the industry are on our board, and they're here tonight. I'm like calling people out. From Domini Social Investments are here, David and Sigward. They were 2 of the pioneers in this idea that a lot of people are uncomfortable with the stock market because you're like, well, if the stock market is all about profit and it's only about profit, that means that I'm making money because someone else is being exploited or the planet's being exploited. And the more we realize that, it's a reason that a lot of women in particular feel yucky about the stock market, because you don't want to be personally profiting from someone else's exploitation. So the challenge with social impact investing is once you start to optimize for the healthier companies, it's possible that they are not going to have the better returns. That's kind of the economics. Although there's a counter theory. Sigward, I'm sure you're going to get up on stage and correct me at some point. But there's a counter theory that perhaps those companies out there are the ones who are going to do better in the long term because they're taking care of people on the planet. That's what we would like to believe. And so there are both socially screened portfolios as well as portfolios that optimize for a social trend, like lots of women on the board, or companies that are going all natural gas or something like that. So there's a new industry developing, and we're actually in this exploration process ourselves, because it's the #1 request on Worth FM is socially screened portfolios. But we have to make sure that we're not impacting someone's ability to retire unless they understand the consequences and the trade-offs of the fees and the performance that happen as a result of that. So we're in strategy mode around that ourselves.
Before we take questions from our audience, Amanda, you have a friend that you'd like to introduce to us who has something to share.
Yep, I just have a very special friend here this evening, Richard Rosso, who flew in from Houston, Texas, and he's an investor in the company, and he just has an incredibly powerful story to tell, and wanted to just say a few words. So before we go to Q&A, Richard, do you want to come up and say a few words?
Well, first I will share that I am honored to be here. Amanda is a female that my daughter looks up to. They got to meet in New York City not too long ago. And Amanda talks about money scripts, how you can almost like how you're coded. But that code, who creates that code that you're taught? Who creates the good girl image? My mother had that image. My mother was totally bred to be the perfect wife. And when her marriage fell apart, so did she. So I write for fiction TV and movies too. And part of the lines they use is crisis changes your story. That's not necessarily true. Sometimes crisis just leads to more crisis. It doesn't change your story. So when Amanda writes about money stories and flipping that switch, it's very important that women understand that. I tried to change my mother's script as a young boy. And even though she went through trials of trying to commit suicide, and I had to take care of her, and I postponed school when I was little, and we were ostracized by a neighborhood in New York because we were odd, because of who she was. I always tried to change her script. And I said, it's never going to happen to women I deal with or my daughter. And when I had a daughter, it became real. And Amanda helped change that story. She says roots and wings, and I say seeds. So I write for various shows, and I tend to be emotional in my dialogue when I write for these shows. But there is a show from the 50s called The Rifleman. I don't know who, maybe people don't. I'm living in Texas now, so I went from New York to Texas, but it's a story by itself, by the way. But I'm good friends with an author named James Altucher, and he said, well, when you write your book, you got to bleed in this book. Because I was writing about money, and money is boring. And I will say off to the side that women are better investors. My professor at Berkeley, Terry Odine, did a study to show women are better than men as investors, because men get their privates in the way. Those are his words. Their ego is in the way, okay? They will, that stock's gonna come back. I've been waiting 30 years. It's coming back. I know it one day it's gonna come back. And the logical risk, the spouse who manages risk says, maybe not. Maybe that car that's crashed, we can salvage the money that's left in that automobile and put it into something better. So I will tell you, women are the ballast, women are the foundation, and women are better decision makers. And I'm managing $400 million, and I'm doing this for 28 years. I will tell you that's the truth, and I'm an advocate for that. But when I saw what Amanda's mission was, I say in the show The Rifleman, he's a sod buster. He's a farmer, but he sticks to the truth no matter what comes his way. No matter who's going to try to infiltrate his life and switch the truth on him, he knows the truth and he will fight for it. So when Amanda says she's roots, I say she's seeds. She is planting seeds for a lot of young women, including my daughter, by the way, who said hi. She says, I took a picture. She goes, oh, that's Amanda. So Amanda's one of her heroes, and she's a great saver. My daughter's 18 years old and has managed to build a portfolio of $56,000 on her own with $10,000 because of what I taught her, but lessons also that Amanda provided to her, that she can do whatever she wants. So when I invested in Daily Worth, when I helped Amanda with her book, and Amanda, on those seeds, instead of water, she sheds blood. Because every good writer's got to bleed. Every good writer's got to share their story. Because part of you's in that book. Your spirit is in that book. Most people in finance, and I deal with a lot of them, they're hollow. They don't have the emotion and the passion behind the mission. The mission is usually to just make more money. Amanda's mission, of course, is to make profit, but Amanda's mission is much, much bigger than that. So I am a raving fan of her. So keep that in mind, that when she talks about wings and roots and wings, she's also providing seeds for a lot of young women who are out there, and she'll continue to do that. So I am very proud of the book. And if you haven't read it, some parts a little embarrassing. I did blush at some of those parts. But it's important she shares how she grew to who she was. And in my book, I did the same thing. I had a mother who was involved in a lot of activities that I would not be proud of because she had to fit her money story. And her money story is she was the good girl, but in the process of being the good girl, she was a very, very bad girl. So thank you so much. But I wanted to just say the book is very powerful, and I think the mission of the company that she's putting together is going to lay groundwork for many young women today, including my daughter. And I have that to owe to her. And I just wanted to share that. Thanks.
Good evening, Amanda. Thank you so much for being here tonight. It struck me, I love all these, the nurturer, and thinking about socially responsible investing. Do you feel that any of these specific money types tend towards socially responsible, tend towards more of an aggressive investing standpoint?
Yeah, it's interesting. We haven't yet done the really looked at the data to see how much money your money type relates to your risk profile, although we look forward to that because it's very hard to predict risk based on the way it's measured today. But absolutely, the two money types that are most social impact oriented are the visionary and the nurturer, and aren't motivated by money unless they also know it is helping others just how you are. Yes, so that is part of the idea, is really designing the service to create the types of financial solutions that we know are going to be most meaningful to you, and therefore create that engagement that so many of the larger brokerages say doesn't exist for women because women aren't interested. So that's the intention for it.
Other questions for Amanda? Everybody's so shy tonight. Do you have a question? Yes, sir.
Uh-oh. My son.
Well, how'd you think of this?
That was cute. Okay. How did I think of writing the book? I actually never intended to write a book. I have, because of the size of Daily Worth, got approached by publishers often throughout the years. And I was like, no, I write, fast-paced articles, and I'm much more interested in the pace of the internet and the live interaction that we have, and I don't really want to write a book. But then it finally came to the point where I saw where all of the advice formats were breaking down for most women, and had finally deconstructed it to the point where I could restructure it again and felt as though I had enough material to make writing a book worthwhile. You're welcome.
I have a particular passion for women who have gone through divorce, particularly women who gave up career to take care of family, children. And in the perfect world for me, those women would turn out to be millionaires. My question is, do you find that women who go through divorce, have been divorced, have a particular profile, a lack of interest in money? Is there something unique about our story, I happen to be one of those women, our story, that you found in your research?
I think the thing that I'm most interested in, I paid attention just because we're interested in those money moments where the wake up happens. Oftentimes it's just really easy to stay in what we call a money coma if you don't have a reason to look at money. Socially, we've been socialized to be disassociated from it. And the thing I'm most interested in terms of the divorce media that I consume is how there's still this sense that it should be a different way, that we should be taken care of, that we somehow got the short end of the stick. That's the part that I'm interested in also supporting, is this shift into your life doesn't have to look exactly like you thought it did, and you're not a failure as a result of that. And that still has not occurred as far as I observe for most divorced women, where they feel like they lost out. But creating a transition to where reinvention is a possibility as opposed to something to carry around to be embarrassed about. So.
I'm working with some women in a collaborative sense. We each have our own endeavors and entrepreneurship type of things. And we are looking to merge some things, not all things, in a collective of sorts. And are finding it, you know, money is like a tough thing to talk about, A, and then like B, even just know how to do that effectively. So that's my question, like what would be an effective tips for that? Thank you.
So it sounds like a business partnership that you're working on creating. I would just say that it's very important in terms of those business partnerships to think about scenarios that could happen if you grow, if you separate, if there's a lot of money, if there's not a lot of money, and just trying to really think about that partnership agreement, and definitely seeking professional help in creating that. Only because if it is really hard to talk about, there's things that can go really wrong, and that's where I've found it's almost like a prenup, but for your business. So that would be my recommendation: is to really take extra care to create that agreement beforehand in writing, and you'll avoid a lot of headaches in the future.
And I just want to say that it's a miracle that I'm here listening to a money talk on a Tuesday night. So based on my story, my backstory, I can't believe I'm here, but I'm actually interested and engaged, so thank you very much. My question for you is, I am trying to change my relationship with money, and I'm engaged to a gentleman, and I don't want to share. I'm sort of thinking that when we get married, I really don't want to even have a shared bank account with him, and I don't know if that's part of my story, but I'd love to know your thoughts in case, you know, like, I don't know if you're married again or you're planning on it, or, you know, second time around.
I'm not
what
sure
are your
we're clear
thoughts
either,
on sharing
yeah.
or not sharing money with a partner?
Yeah, so my partner, Jordan, who's here, we live in separate houses and have separate everything. And I don't know if it will remain that way forever. He's saying yes, it will definitely remain that way forever. It's, you know, we study this a lot as well, and we're in this fascinating state of gender role transition across the board. Not sure anyone's really happy about it as much as women are in a shift, men are as well, where your gender doesn't dictate aspects of how your life should be. And therefore, a lot of the old norms just aren't true anymore. And so we're living in a period of creative exploration, especially around money and partnership. And those new models haven't really crystallized yet. So I can't actually tell you, here's how it works for someone like you at this stage. I will tell you, though, that I'm part of a lot of communities of women in positions like me where we talk about these things. And what I'm hearing most often is 2 separate accounts and 1 joint account, and then figuring out how you negotiate what goes into that joint account based on who earns what. But more so, I am seeing a lot more keeping almost everything separate, except for the stuff that you do together. And I can see that being really helpful, especially if you have different triggers, different sabotage patterns, different views on money. It means that you don't end up in a state of codependency where that creates further problems down the line. I mean, sometimes codependency works. You know, I'm not saying it's always bad. I'm just saying, you know, it's nice to give yourself options so you don't get stuck.
Thank you. So I know you mentioned briefly that you didn't want it to be kind of like a commercial, but I was interested in the Money Clarity course. So just wondering, you know, when that's going to be available. Is it something that's online, in person?
We are launching it in 3 weeks, information about it. So if you go to Daily Worth right now and it says get started, I think that's what we just relaunched it. If you scroll down, there's multiple products. I think this link is broken right now. We just launched it yesterday. We have to fix it, but it's got all the products right there, and Money Clarity is one of them. So you can go back there and find it really soon. And it's online, and it's 4 weeks.
Hi, Amanda. Slow. I have a lot of voice too. I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to make the comment how happy I am to hear this. And forgive me, I'm getting a little emotional because I realize how much this connects. But people don't talk about the story aspect, and I'm very much financially independent for most of my life. And it's really important to be able to understand this piece. I'm sorry.
No, I'm glad that I didn't read a chapter. Whenever I read the chapter in the book, I cry. I read it to Dina last week, and I was sobbing. So I totally understand. It's fine.
A financial support, but maybe you've had emotional support from your family, but not financial support. It can be extremely challenging to navigate this. So thank you.
No, I've cried a lot. I'm with you.
I think a lot of women can relate to that. That's why the book resonates so well.
Hold on one sec. We're here and then we'll to you.
Okay.
Amanda, I'm wondering if you've thought about the approach to young women as the mother of daughters who are sort of 19 and 21 now. It's so important to start focusing on saving early, and yet they're like met by this constant wave of consumerism. I'm just wondering if you thought about it, a unique approach to them.
Yeah, we've definitely thought about young women. Right now, I would say our core focus is women in their 40s and 50s, because that's who is really feeling the burn of this cultural shift and this new required independence for so many women. So we're more focused on them right now, but hopefully the fascinating thing to me about Daily Worth over the years is that if you look at the pie chart of age of who we serve, it's everyone from 22 to 80 practically, spread evenly across the board. The millennials though are already more advanced. So right now it's the Gen Xers and young boomers that are feeling the biggest burn right now. So it's just where it is in the market.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
You talked about everybody having their own personal finance story, and that includes people who are professionals in the personal finance field. What advice would you give to somebody who, is looking at reinventing their own story versus, getting advice from people who might have their own stories, and how much of their experience is going to bleed over into yours, and what should you be wary about?
I think what you can be wary about is the formulas that have made sense in the financial services world are quite linear. It's so interesting when I'm up on stage presenting my companies to a room of venture capitalists where they say, how are your portfolios performing? Where performance has always been the primary measure of whether your investments are successful. And yet for women, the performance may be a factor, or maybe it's other factors in terms of how you think about what success looks like for you. So I think that, it's very logical. Set goals, create a financial plan, optimize your performance, reduce your fees. Yes, that's a very logical, rational way to think about your finances, and it's ubiquitous because it is so logical. However, I would say also just pay attention. This is what a lot of what the book about is, that what may really matter to you, what may be really important to you, may not line up with the traditional formulas, and that's fine, because if you try and play their game, doesn't mean you're going to be any happier if you're denying what's important to you. For example, starting a business can be really bad for your personal finances, for example. It can really send you into debt, but for some, it's like an art for you, and you have to do it. And so it's a lifestyle choice, not a financial decision. May not jive with the traditional formulas, but may be important to you. So I would say, know what the logic patterns are, but also pay attention to what matters to you, and then try and find the right balance between the two.
Philanthropy, where does that fit into the model that you're putting together for supporting all sorts of things?
So I am on the board of an organization called One Light Global, which provides direct relief to refugees right now they're in Serbia, because that's where the greatest need is, they perceived it. And I'm on the board because I'm really interested, part of the reason why I'm so interested in women's financial progress and prosperity in terms of closing the wealth gap is that I perceive, and I imagine many of you agree, that there's a great imbalance in the world, and that the wealth divide is increasing, and that more are suffering as a result of this. So the goal with these companies long term is to see how we can contribute in some way to reducing that inequality. And all I know is I spend a lot of time on the phone with the head of One Light Global, trying to figure out how she works from the bottom up and I'm working from the top down, and we're going to try and meet in the middle to redesign the systems of how currency flows in order to rethink what it means to profit. I know that's a long, long, big goal, but it's the intention that we're holding out there. So to start, for the week that my book went on sale, for every book that was purchased, I took the exact price and I got other philanthropists to match that, so that we ended up donating about $6,000 to One Light Global, so that we then got to see all the food that we purchased. I'm not quite sure, from social impact investing to redirecting certain budgets to direct aid to those who need it most. Not quite sure what the formula is, but I do know that it is integral to what we are building, and that at some point it won't just be about our own portfolios, but our own portfolios respective to the whole, and what does it mean to re-engineer the markets. Because that's what Baldwin, I went to Baldwin, and there's lots of amazing Baldwin people here tonight, because that's what Baldwin teaches you to do, is, change economies and stuff.
Well, I think that is a very forward-thinking place for us to wrap up our discussion. Amanda, before we go, give us the website. Where can people get information about Worth
dailyworth.com, worthfm.com, and amandasteinberg.net.
And please join me in thanking Amanda Steinberg for being with us tonight.